Good Girls Get Rich, the conversations. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Good Girls Get Rich, the conversations. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich, and I am loving these live shows that we're doing every week. This is only like maybe the fifth one that we've done, and it's been a lot of fun. So if you are here watching us with us live, we'd love for you to jump into the conversation and jump into the chat wherever you're watching this. If you're watching this on the replay, make sure that you put noon Eastern on your calendar and come join us for a live episode over on LinkedIn any Wednesday at noon Eastern. I am so excited to be here today with Jamie Maglietta. Jamie and I met at a conference a couple months ago, I guess now. And I loved her energy. I will talk a little bit about what I've already implemented that she taught me, but she's an Emmy-nominated television news veteran and media strategist with 20 plus years producing for CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, BET, Fox Business. She's worked alongside Wolf Blitzer, Fox and Friends, and behind the scenes with VP Kamala Harris during her time at BET, shaping stories and coaching on-air talent at the highest levels. Today, she's the founder of On Cam Ready, helping professionals, brands, and leadership teams become media ready through on-camera coaching, content strategy, visibility training. She's got a master's degree from Harvard and a focus in strategy, and is a really award winner, graduate of TikTok's One Creator Club, and she's a podcast host, podcaster unknown to known, and think like a producer. Jamie, I am so happy to have you here with me today. I've been excited to have this conversation since we met back at PodFest in January 2020.
I loved when we met too, because we both were just feeding off each other's energy.
Yes.
We want more, but we also want to help others achieve more too.
Yes, I agree. And I think, listen, I one of the things that I said to Jamie when we met was, I knew we were going to be doing this episode, this podcast series, the conversations, but also, our podcast, there's more video and more, I think, podcasts. And we talked about this. I talked about this with Vinny Potestivo, who you also know. Vinny was on this conference. Vinny kicked off the conversations, I think, for the first episode. And Vinny and I talked about how podcasts are becoming more multimedia. They're becoming more like TV, like they're less just audio radio, and more like, creating a media, brand around your podcast. Right. So one of the things that I really wanted to do as I was going into this year was just do a better job with things like lighting and I'm not a big fan personally of like green screen backgrounds and stuff like that. I wanted to be able to turn on my camera and talk, but do it in a way where I felt like I was well lit and I didn't feel like I needed fancy stuff. But, Jamie gave me some ideas. Hold on, I'm going to show. If you're watching this, you can watch this live. This is the before Jamie lighting. And this is and this is on my cell phone. I have the app for these lights, which, how cool is that? And this is the after Jamie lighting. Not huge, but a big difference to me. And these are the little things that I think are so important for entrepreneurs. So I love what you're doing, because I think you help regular people like me and like anybody listening, with these little things that make a big difference in how we show up.
Yeah, I have right now a visibility bundle that people can download. I'll make sure to give you a link, because
that'd be great.
They can go through a checklist of all they need, and then I send them to my Amazon storefront with like all the different lights and mics, because all those little things do make a difference.
Yes.
Especially if you're looking to build out your digital footprint so that you can attract more clients or lure in the press, podcasts, media, whatever you want. You want to look the part so you are more bookable to the media that is looking for a guest that could be you.
I love that. And I think that many of us should be considering being what we can do to become more bookable. Because I think that the world we live in right now, if you are not standing out, you're invisible. And one of the ways to stand out is to be more visible by being interviewed on podcasts and being, quoted in newspapers and magazines. And journalists and podcast hosts are looking for people like you and like me and like our listeners.
Correct.
Right? We just have to be ready for that.
I always tell people, you want to be programming your social media feed, your LinkedIn feed, your Facebook, whatever you use, like your own media channel. What Karen's doing right now, and she has her branding, her name, her logo, all those elements make Karen come across as more professional, more polished, more ready to be booked because she's putting in that effort and she's making herself, as well as the product that she's producing, as polished as possible. And with everyone in the scroll or on YouTube, you really want to make everything you're producing as high quality as possible because last year YouTube was the most streamed platform in households. So if you aren't on YouTube and you aren't putting out a podcast in a video format and you are podcasting, I challenge you to start thinking about it and maybe make 2026 the year that you turn your audio podcast into a video, or you turn that thought leadership into a long form podcast, because being on YouTube and having video content is really going to help people build know, like, and trust with you, which we all want to do in marketing when we're marketing ourselves, our businesses, our brands, our point of view.
Right. And Jamie, we'll for sure list all of your social media sites in the show notes for this episode. That being said, I remember the first time I went to your YouTube channel, I'm like, oh, this is good. Like I learned things, just forget about watching the videos. Like, yes, you need to watch Jamie's videos. But before I even watched the videos, I was like, wait, I can collaborate with other video YouTube, like things I just didn't know. Right. And I'm like so I was just like looking at your channel before I even watched a single video and learned so much about it. Now, listen, there's still stuff that we need to do. If you're an entrepreneur, you probably are wearing a lot of hats. And even if you're getting some help, there's things like Jamie mentioned, the things that we did to produce this show to make it seem more professional. And this is episode 5. We're still tweaking things. And what I want to mention is that like done is better than perfect, right?
Yes.
Like I needed to be done. But if you're watching this on video, I'll show you one thing that we still haven't fixed yet. Like down here on the left, it says Good Girls Get Rich, the conversations. And you can't see the Good Girls Get Rich because we didn't realize the dark purple on the black was even going to happen. So last week when I noticed it, I said, all right, we have to put white or something around those letters. It's a week later. We still haven't done it. So we will, right? It will happen. Hopefully by next week, we'll have that done. But it's not about being perfect, right? It's about continuing to take strides towards showing up in a bigger and better and more professional way.
Yeah. And it's all about thinking like a producer. If you're thinking like a producer and you're implementing what you know and what you can learn from other producers that are out there producing content, applying it to yourself and doing it the best you can, that's a start. Like for right now with my YouTube, I've probably changed my thumbnails a dozen times. But it's because I'm still also tweaking and figuring it out. I may be at like, I think around 2,500 subscribers on YouTube, where I'm collecting maybe 2 or 3 people a day, which is big for me, but could it be growing faster? Yes. So I'm obviously always looking at ways to boost my videos with SEO, with new headlines, different thumbnails, topics. Like right now, I'm asking people, can you look at my YouTube? Tell me what you want more of. Because I give media training in my Think Like a Producer. And then my Unknown to Known, I interview people who have essentially been on that journey of unknown to known. And I try to get people at different parts of that journey. And most recently, I interviewed individuals who they posted on social media or LinkedIn and landed press. They never hired PR. They just secured it. One of them, my gosh, she had Wall Street Journal, Oprah, and she landed the front page of USA Today.
You know what? I love that. And here's the thing. I mean, if I can jump into that, because I think that's exactly what we teach, by the way, in our She's Linked Up program and our visibility salon, because if you're listening to this and going, okay, so you've been landed in Oprah, like, what does that really do for you? Here's what it does for you. You can use the logo that says, I've been, I've been a part of, the Oprah network, or whatever it is that you did with that. And I've had clients do the same thing. As a matter of fact, I'm putting a presentation together for a talk I'm doing this weekend. And I just put a slide together with like 3 different media hits that my clients got all in 1 week. One was her product on The View. One was a realtor who got quoted in NBCnews.com. And one was somebody that got quoted in Costco Connection, which is the largest or second largest media magazine in the in the United States, at least, if not the world. Oh, second to, I think, AARP. So what does that do for
Writing
you?
down Costco connection right now.
Right. So, but here's the thing, like my realtor who got quoted in NBCnews.com, like, so he's in Washington State. So somebody in, what's somebody in Tennessee going to do for that? Like, what's that going to do for him? Here's what it's going to do for him when he goes out on a listing appointment and he's got competition and he can say, well, when I was quoted in NBC News last month, and drops that article on the table, he doesn't lose any business because he's now stood out from everybody around him. So, and this is creatable. He didn't even pitch himself. All he did was have a have a great profile. Like, he looked worthy of the journalist's time. And when the journalist posted something the week before, he jumped into the conversation and said, oh, I've been sharing this, connected with the journalist on LinkedIn, shared the article the journalist wrote the week before with his network, and tagged her in it, and just provided value to that journalist. And a week later, she called him and said, can I ask you a few questions? Right. Like, so.
And that's what I teach people.
Right. Networking. It can be that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Listen, someday when you're bringing in $10 million a year, sure, go ahead and hire a PR firm. Like, I'm not saying that's not a good thing to do. I'm saying you don't need it, though, to get started by any means.
No, you don't. And I always say it's better to not chase press, but produce it. You need to be producing yourself, your feeds, and coming up with points of view that you share on those channels that could be headlines in an article or quotes for a newspaper or magazine. Because if you start showing up and sharing your point of view, a very pointed point of view that is relevant to the media, because, as much as we say media gets media, it does, but relevancy is what helps you secure that first piece of media. And you aren't going to be seen as relevant if you're not leaning into the media and into that media ecosystem where the press already is. Yeah.
I love that. I love what you talked about, where like creating headlines that could be pulled in the media. And one way, I mean, I'm going to throw this out there and you tell me if you agree or disagree with that. I know that, like I mentioned to you, that Costco Connection is number 2, but number 1 is AARP magazine. And AARP like, I feel like I want to just like take an article that I wrote, uploaded it to an AI and say, okay, write me a headline for this as if I was AARP. Do you know what I mean? And because AARP knows how to do that. They know how to create those hooks in their headlines, right? They know how to create those hooks in a headline. So I feel like, as much as I want you to be authentic in everything that you write, I'm not looking for you to use AI to create your entire media, conglomerate. I do think there's ways, though, that we can use it to make things a little bit easy for us, if that's not your skill, right? If your skill is not like, I don't really, what do you mean write a hook around it? The article's great. The article's chock full of amazing stuff because you're brilliant, but maybe you get stressed by, I don't know how to write a hook. So then nothing happens with the article because nobody saw it, because you didn't create it in a way that one little shift, right?
Yeah.
And that you could get some help with that from your AI assistant, I think.
Yeah. And I think this totally works especially if you're talking about LinkedIn articles, coming up with a headline that you could see appearing on your ideal publication. If you're someone who is aiming for Forbes, I'd be writing as if I'm already writing for Forbes, trying to keep that in mind so that you are appealing. If a Forbes reporter lands on your LinkedIn or lands on your social media, you want to be speaking to that audience. And I always say it's called what, you need to know who you are, who you serve, right? How you're going to be showing up, that alignment to your audience, and the transformation you're going to provide. So with each post, you really need that clarity around all those points in order to really be appealing. And so when people say, oh, I landed press from posting, a lot of times they have everything that I just mentioned marked out. It's like, I look at this post, I know who you are, I know who you serve, I know the transformation you're going to provide my audience, the value, and that's what makes you appealing.
Right. And keep in mind that what Jamie just talked about was like, tell me about you, but make it about me. Because I don't really care about you. Like, I don't really care about you, the person that's writing the article, right? I care about why you think I should be interested in what you're putting out there, right? That is, so we want to stand we want to be confident about it in our brand, and we want to show up as an expert. but we also want to recognize that people don't care who you are. They care what you can do for them. So creating that media, that article on LinkedIn or the newsletter on LinkedIn in a way that makes me say, wait, I want to read that. Like, that's interesting to me. I love that.
Can I share something with your
Yes,
audience?
please.
Like, I haven't talked about this publicly, but I have this, like, it's a framework that I help people with, and I think it will really fit with this.
I would love to hear
It's called KNOWN.
Okay.
And the K is for know your message. The N is nurture your presence. O is own your story. And then from there, you also have W for widening your reach, making sure that you are appearing on other podcasts. And N is for nailing the moment. Like what we were talking about with lights and cameras and the action, right? You want to nail those moments that are on camera. And I think, when you are someone who knows your message and you know what you're offering, like I was saying, and you nurture that presence where you're constantly showing up, you're creating community, you're providing value, you're showing up vulnerable, knowing that later on that could turn into value too. Being authentic, like you were saying, and then just owning that whole story, like who you are. And you and I had talked about this. I was in corporate America, so corporate television, as you mentioned, 24-hour news. When you get laid off, when you have those moments, share it, talk about it, because I was on social media and those that are speaking up about being laid off or losing their job have thousands of views on their videos. Those videos could get shared with someone who's hiring. You don't know. It's all about being you and showing up. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that, there's a couple of things that happen when you do that, when you share your point of view. First of all, you stand out from the crowd, right?
Yes.
But second of all, how do we go here? We live in a world right now that's very polarized. And a lot of people are very careful about who they bring onto as you should be, careful about who you bring onto your show, careful about who you quote. And they want to make sure that they are partnering with people who have aligned values to who they are. But if they don't know what your values are, they may move on to somebody else because they can't tell so the more you talk about your point of view, the more you're vulnerable in what you talk about, the more likely you're going to get these opportunities because you're making it easy for people that are looking for somebody to talk about the things that you just talked about. You're making it easy for them to find you and to know where you stand on an issue. And there's not going to be any surprises in the middle of the interview,
Yeah. The media doesn't create experts. It recognizes them. So in order to become that expert to the media, you already need to be living and breathing your passion, your point of view. We would always look for people who had an academic background, a lived experience to support why we would book them. However, now, as you're seeing, there's more conversations happening around politics, culture, and these are individuals who are essentially building a community and a brand around their point of view in untraditional ways. And this is an opportunity and a moment for people to truly create the life they want with their passions, with their experiences, their lived moments. As I mentioned, the woman, Kendall L. Williams, she was on Oprah, she was on all these outlets. She began just talking about her own experience with her son and how they were no longer talking, making herself an expert in estranged relationships with children. Wow. And now she has become that go-to person that people want to hear from. And then this other woman I spoke to, she's called the Formula Mom. So she was planning on breastfeeding. She wound up starting a social media channel just basically on Instagram, talking about how she couldn't breastfeed and had to give her baby formula, and started to just rant and rave and talk about it and educate other people. And it turned into an entirely new career. And now she is a formula expert for brands. So there's no stopping you right now in what you are capable of doing. Before, you had to have that academic credential behind you. Now if you're showing up consistently, you're building a brand around your POV, point of view, and you have engagement, you have that owned audience, and you own your story, you are going to help, become appealing to the media, and potentially make yourself a known expert within your niche if you do it strategically and you do it well.
And what I love about those stories, Jamie, is those two women really had to they were brave to share those stories,
yep.
right? They were vulnerable, they were brave. And would somebody like if the woman that you talked about that is the formula expert, if she came out as the breastfeeding expert, she would have been one of billions, right?
Correct.
Like, but now she stood out.
Correct.
Because there's many women that are facing the same issue that she faced, and they feel guilty or bad or whatever, like a bad mom because they are giving formula, which is ridiculous. But that's what we're hearing, because that's all we're hearing. So I'm pointing that out to say that I find, like, when I'm working privately with people, I'm always kind of looking for their disruptive angle, because I think those are the angles that people want to hear more about. They don't want to hear this plain vanilla stuff everybody else is talking about. They want to hear what you talk about that's a little different than what they're hearing, out in the world. And that's what gets you brought on to shows. That's what gets your interview, your hooks picked up, those kinds of things. And you could obviously talk about other things too, but if you talk, I for some reason I do a lot of work with realtors. And when I work with realtors, they all want to be vanilla. They all want to be like the same messaging and the same things. And I'm like, by the way, have not found one yet. So realtor, if you're listening, please do this. I want to find a realtor that's willing to say, if you hire me to sell your house, I'm going to come there with my sage and we're going to cleanse it, and I'm going to feng shui your house, and we're going to put crystals strategically, and we're going to paint Reiki symbols on the walls behind the paint, because we're going to use all the energy of the universe to sell this house, not just my marketing skills. If that's you, I promise you, somebody's going to go, oh my God, that's for me. That's for me. And I know exactly when to send people to you versus the other 12 realtors that are your competition in that same market.
I'll say there's a difference. If you're listening to this and you are looking to build clientele, like she's talking about, you're looking to have someone hire you as a listing agent or a seller's agent, right? You want to be showcasing the pieces of you. I just got off a call with one of my clients, and I said to her, I asked her, what are your hobbies? Because if you can start leaning into your expertise as, say, pickleball, right? Talk about how you play pickleball, shoot some video of how you play pickleball, and start marketing yourself to people who value that and want their listing agent to understand what's a priority to them, which might have been why they are, have that house to begin with. It could have a pickleball court, or for a list, for a seller's agent too. Like, hey, we're looking for a house. Like, I'm not a seller's, the buyer's agent. I'm looking for a house like this. So it's all about positioning yourself. However, I will say this, like, that can work for building clientele. That can work for appealing to your potential client, your buyers. It is not as appealing to the media, to the press. That is appealing if it's showing engagement and that you're relating to your audience. But to the media, you want to be more leaning into the news. You want to be showing that you have an opinion on stories that could be appealing to them, like with the formula mom or with, estrangement. Those two angles can work really well, like estrangement, Mother's Day story, how it's not always great. Formula, how you get pregnant, you think it's going to go one way and it's not. Parenting magazine. Like you want to be thinking about your content as, who am I as an expert? What could I be talking about that could be appealing to my local market, to my niche magazines? And then how can I build my audience? How can I build engagement? And what, Karen, you're talking about is like building engagement. I had this one realtor who
standing out so that from your, and I do think I hear you, and I really appreciate that. And I do think, though, that there is a time where that becomes a more interesting story than a realtor who has the top 3 things to make your house smell nice at open houses. Do you know what I mean? Where, yes, there's plenty of people that want to write that article, right?
But
yeah. But it's going to be hard to get. It's going to be hard to be that expert, right? Because you're competing against a billion other people to be that
everyone
expert.
Else. Yes. However, if you have, I think in those cases, if you're a realtor and maybe you are, an association president and you're weighing in on the news, that has happened about interest rates, that could be appealing to the local because they're like, oh, this person has some cred. But if you are a realtor, I have one who I said, you ride horses and dirt bikes. Like, we should be incorporating that. So she does. She uses her horses on like properties that are very big, and she can have a horse on the property and shows like it's rideable. Like, you can have a horse here.
I love that.
So it's all about thinking outside the box in that instance and saying, what makes me different? How do I stand out? Because you don't want to be looking like everybody else. You don't want to be talking about the same topics. And you need to be a thought leader within your niche to truly stand out to both clients and to the media. But it's not just the media. If you're bookable to the press, you could ultimately become more bookable to a literary agent if you're an author, or to a speaker bureau, or an event planner who needs speakers. So you want to be thinking about the full package. Yeah.
Yes, that's so true. And what that does, Jamie, is brings like an aspect of magnetism to your marketing. People start coming to you instead of you out there constantly pitching yourself, constantly looking for clients, constantly looking for podcasts to be on, constantly looking for those kinds of things. People start coming to you if it's so clear if you've got such clarity around your brand and clarity around your thought leadership and a real sense of confidence in your messaging, people start coming to you and inviting you to things, which is exactly as tired entrepreneurs we want to be, right? It's so nice to have that, that's a big piece of what we do is, and one of my favorite things is when I start to see that magnet strengthening, and people start getting opportunities that somebody reached out to them for. I'm like, this is it. That's what we've been waiting for.
Exactly.
Right? So
it's a long game.
It is a long game. And there's lots of things you can do, like, SEO and now AI SEO, whatever that's called. And all that stuff is important too. Right. But at the same time, you want to be found when people are doing searches. I mean, period, and that happens the more you've got, the more you're out there, and that comes from that visibility.
Yeah. And, I used to be, again, let's remind people, journalist. Okay. I never really was into paid media. However, as an entrepreneur with AI, I recommend you do at least one. I even just did one. And I was like, you know what? I need an article that says exactly what I want people to find me and know me as. In order to do that, I felt like it wouldn't hurt to have a backlink to my website to an article that did exactly that. And then AI, when it searches me, it has that language from another source other than me. So
smart.
I never ever thought I would do it, but it was as I started to research this AI mode in Google, it made sense. And of course, like, I have bylines, but I'm not typically the expert people are interviewing for an article, right? I'm more of the person who's behind the scenes helping others get interviewed, or, helping others look good on camera. But for someone like me, for an entrepreneur who doesn't have much media and is looking to get started, I'm like, you know what? If it's like a few $100, it could be worth it, and it could lead to more media, which is what we say in Media Earns Media. But it's also about being prepared. So a lot of people start putting themselves out there, Karen, and they want to be visible, but they're not ready. And you have to be prepared, because preparation provides freedom. Not performing.
Oh my gosh, it's great. Yes.
You can produce, right?
Yes.
And that's what you need to do. You don't want to chase the press. You want to produce yourself and produce that press. Like, earn it, really earn it, and get it and be ready for it.
And when you're ready for it, it's you just do better, I think. Like, if somebody, like, one of the things we teach, depending on the level that you invest with us, is having like a Google Drive folder for your media stuff, right? And one of the things in that Google Drive folder is 20 questions that you want people to ask you in a podcast interview, because you might get this opportunity and then you're filling out the application, you're running out the door because you're meeting somebody for dinner because you think it's going to be a minute. And then one of the questions is, give me 4 questions to ask you, right? Like, and now you're like, oh, now you're like either making them up on the fly, right? Or like you put it on pause and you maybe never even get back to it, and do that booking, because that's certainly happened to me. So now you have a place you can go and say, okay, this interview is about ABC. I've got 20 questions. Let me pick the 3 questions that I think are going to be the most aligned with their audience. And it's already done. So now you're showing up in a more professional way. And it's so being prepared isn't always just like mentally prepared. There's some stuff, and you do it once and then it's done. You can always adjust it. You can always add things to it. But I love that's a great point. But I want to just come back to something that you just said, which let me think about what I wanted to come back to. You're just the paid article that you created. I think that's brilliant. And I would love to ask you, how did you, like, what is the research you did, or what is the criteria that you did to find the right the right publication for that?
Well, for me, I went with MSN. And I went with that because it's a familiar brand. And I thought, for me, it made the most financial sense. It wasn't very expensive. So it was like, okay, well, sure, let me do it. I consulted an AI expert in addition to researching with Claude. But the AI expert was really who pushed me to say yes. It was her whole theory on AI, your website, having backlinks made so much sense to me as I'm starting to learn SEO for my own business, for my YouTube. And so for me, it was a no-brainer to do it at least once. I'm not going to do it. I don't plan on doing it again. But but as I went down that research hole, I found there's so many people selling media opportunities. I would highly recommend that if you're going to go down that road, you make sure that the type of article you're paying for lands in the news tab on Google. It should not land anywhere else. If it doesn't land in the news section, it really will make you look like you paid for it.
Right.
So you want to also keep that in mind and ask those questions. Like, where will this land in a search? How is this cataloged online so that it appears in a news tab? Because as a producer, if I'm researching you, I'm going to look at the news tab and say, does this person fall in this tab? And if so, when was the last time they were quoted? Because that's going to also help build your case for relevancy. Relevancy is all about having a purpose right now, being seen right now for your calling, for your point of view. So if you're listening and you're an author, share what it's like to build that book, not just the topic, because that's going to make you relatable. And a journalist may see that and be like, oh, this person's on an author journey. I could write about how all these people are sharing about their author journeys online. Book talk is still huge on TikTok. Even if you're in your 40s or 50s and you're like, I don't want to be on TikTok, go to TikTok. TikTok is your home. Trust me. I just graduated from a TikTok program, and it really is helping those in the algorithm with an older presence get more views. They want wisdom there. They want people who have a cool point of view. So that's a definite tip, I would say, to help people. But yeah, you really want to find a way to be relevant. So if you're a real estate agent, as we were mentioning, talking about interest rates could help. If you're a lawyer, looking at certain cases online and sharing about them in your LinkedIn posts or in your social media feeds. And that can help you become a bit more relevant. And what I do with my clients is I work them through how to become known. Their full packaging, like, what is their through line? What's the visual interpretation of their expertise as well? How are they producing their content? Could they be doing it in a more efficient way? How can I help them there? What kind of content can they be creating that will help them stand out? And then I always look at their uniqueness gaps. Like, where are they more unique than others, and where are they weaker than those that are getting booked? And I do these evaluations to really help people get a better understanding of where they fall and maybe why they've been hearing no, so that they can start to hear yes. And so that's how I am positioning myself now as that secret weapon before press.
Oh my gosh, that's so brilliant. That's so smart. Okay, so tell us what you've got going on this upcoming year. Like, how are you working with people? How can people find you? We can talk forever, and I think we've covered so much. What have you got coming on, and how can we stay connected to you and learn, just continue to absorb your brilliance?
Oh, thank you. I am active on LinkedIn. I have a podcast and a YouTube channel, but YouTube is where I want you to be. So it's On Cam Ready on YouTube. There I have interviews with television personalities, influencers, and also people within the business, like producers and PR firms, to give you advice on how to navigate from unknown to becoming known. And then I have my Think Like a Producer series where I'm giving you media training tips, how to be an effective host, how to be the guest people want to call back. And I do that by evaluating YouTube podcasts and sharing what I'm seeing their guests and hosts do that can help you. Um, Outside of that, I'm on Instagram, Jamie_Maglietta. But right now, I'm going to offer anyone who's listening to this a free call so they can visit my website, download that visibility bundle, and I will offer them a free call. What I do with clients is, again, I package them. So here's what I found as a journalist. So many people would pitch me and it would be the wrong pitch. I literally just yesterday, because I still freelance in news, replied to a PR firm and said, this has absolutely no relevancy to my show, but it's written as if you know me and you don't.
Right.
And AI does that. So if you're pitching yourself out, you want to make sure that if I like the pitch, that when I do the research, you are everything I'm hoping you'll be. And so I'm trying to make sure that more professionals package themselves correctly and well and effectively before they seek media, before they pitch themselves to speak on a stage.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what I do. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. And we need that. We need that.
I have a DIY digital course I just created too, Karen. I just finished it. It's called the Visibility Program. I always forget about it. Yeah, like so people can.
I just finished it and I forget about it.
Yeah.
Welcome to being an entrepreneur, right?
Like crazy.
Right. Listen, I love that. And I think that, what I want people to take away from this interview today is that whatever it is that you're brilliant at, right? If it doesn't have to be the stuff that Jamie is brilliant at, because we have people like Jamie to help us, right? We have people like Jamie to help us do things like just a simple purchase of lights that I had like a ring light behind my monitors here that was just awful. But that's what I thought I needed, because that's what I thought everybody had, and Jamie's like, no, this is what you need. And I bought them and these giant boxes came and I was like, oh my effing God, what am I going to do with this? But it's perfect. It's perfect. And I didn't, my partner actually is in media. He works for he used to work for MSNBC, for NBC. And I made him come in and fix the lights. I'm like, okay, like, light me here, like make the so because it was but it's now it's done. I never have to think about it again.
Exactly.
And now I can just do what I do best and not have to worry about things like lighting. And I'm always, like we talked about earlier, though, I'm always looking to what's the next level, like what else can I do to make to make things seem a little bit more professional or be a little bit more professional. But honestly, I learned so much just from looking at Jamie's YouTube channel. When I started watching videos, it was even more. So thank you so much for everything that you do. I really appreciate you being here today. And if you're listening to this on the podcast feeds, all of the stuff we talked about here will be in the show notes and links. So Jamie, just send over anything we talked about and we'll make sure they get added. And come, put noon Eastern on your calendar, and just all you gotta do is find me on LinkedIn, and it's noon Eastern on Wednesdays. Put it on your calendar. You'll find me here live talking to somebody great like Jamie, and you get to jump into the conversation. And I don't know about you, but I've heard so many podcast conversations where I want to jump in and
ask a question.
A question, like Carlene is asking, what are those lights just for Zoom meetings? So Jamie, do you remember what light? She's probably going, I don't remember what lights I sent you.
Yeah. Hold on. It's I use Neewer as my that's recommended brand. Yep. And I'll make sure that you get that link.
It's NEEWR. I'm looking at the app.
Yeah. And I'm using them now, and I use mine at a higher, blinding light. So you can really have a variety of intensities with these lights.
Yeah. And
they're in my Amazon
on my phone that I can adjust these lights in this app, all that stuff. So I'm not going to touch them right now because I don't know how to fix them, but I literally just use the app to turn them on and off. And
they're great. The lights are good, but also like the microphone. I was using an ATR up until my Shure. I actually still like the ATR. If you're not looking to invest in a Shure, an ATR is like 40, maybe $50. So that's
awesome.
another.
So we'll get your link to your list, your Amazon page with all your recommended stuff. That'd be great. All right. Carlene, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, they're big. I will warn you, but once they're in place, like you don't have to touch them. So it doesn't matter. They're just bigger than I thought they were going to be, but I would never have thought that these were the right lights for me in a million years. I never would have thought that. So I appreciate, that's why I like making friends like Jamie. Yay. All right, guys, I'll see you next week at noon. Jamie, thanks so much for being here. We'll have to connect again somewhere.
Talk soon.
All right. Bye.